Welcome to the Happy Hour podcast. I'm Shannon.
And I'm Nathan.
And we are your hosts sharing our crazy lives here on the ranch with you.
We're husband and wife, and we're going to chat with y'all about what's happening here at the ranch, in the world, and whatever else we're fixating on.
And our goal is to share our journey, some laughs, and maybe we'll all learn a little something along the way too.
Welcome to Happy Hour podcast, and buckle up.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Happy Hour podcast. It's Shannon here, and I am interviewing an incredible guest. You guys, I kind of feel like a kindergartner at Christmas because I'm interviewing someone who does some really, really important work that is super near and dear to my heart. If you followed me on Instagram at all, you know that it's near and dear to my heart. But I found this gentleman through Instagram. So there is some really cool stuff that social media can do. I know sometimes I poo-poo it, but there's some really cool stuff that social media can do, which is connecting me with someone like Chris here. It's Chris Waldhaus. Did I say it right, Chris?
You did. Yes.
Yay! Chris, who over the last 15 years has been working with horses in a healing environment. And Chris, I seriously have like excitement bubbles in my tummy talking to you about this. So this is how excited I am about this topic and about speaking to you. And so welcome to the show.
So excited as well. I think we're having some internet connection issues, but I definitely agree with you. I feel like a kid also. This is the first time I've done something like this. And so to be able to share my passion and know that I'm sharing it with someone who has that same passion, it's really important. And I'm grateful. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. And I know we're going to have internet connectivity issues probably, and I just ask for everybody's patience. Chris is at his ranch, and you know, these ranches, sometimes their connection is not always perfect, but that's a perfect environment to disconnect and then connect to yourself and maybe even a horse. So that's okay that you have internet connectivity issues. If you have to, you can turn off your video too. Sometimes that makes it a little bit better connection if you want. It's totally up to you. I love seeing you in your beautiful space, but also if you feel like that'll give a better connection, it's up to you. Before we talk about the horses, tell me about your ranch. Where is it? How many acres? And you know, what's on your ranch? Tell us about your ranch.
Okay, so I'm in Joshua Tree, California. It's Southern California, and it's considered the high desert. So most people, when they think of the desert, they automatically think really hot, very dry. But I don't know if you can see it now. It's actually raining a little bit here. And it does get cold at night in the high desert during the winter months. We also see snow. I'm located probably 15 minutes from both entrances to the Joshua Tree National Park. I'm on 56 acres. We back up next to Bureau of Land Management. So we have access to hundreds of miles of trails. There's beautiful scenery out here and wildlife on the property. We've got a couple kit fox dens. We've got some desert tortoises, lots of critters and lizards and snakes during the summer, but it's just a really beautiful place. And I definitely would recommend if you're in Southern California to come check it out.
I love it. Now, can people stay at the ranch with you?
Yes. So we offer unique stays. I know you can probably see it because we're here on the video, but I have a geodesic dome that we offer a unique stay, and we have 4 teepees that are unique stays. We have 2 bell tents, and then we call it dry camping, where you can just either pitch your own tent or pull up in your car. We actually have a lot of people who pull up in the car because of the rock climbing in the park. So they come and I believe they're touring the national parks climbing. They come, they park overnight, they drive into the park really early in the morning before it gets super hot, and they go climb. So we can accommodate multiple types of stays, as well as RVs. And, you know, as long as it's not one of those huge 60-footers, some of these roads in the desert are pretty soft. The sand gets soft. So if you plan on going off-road, then you want to have like a 4-wheel drive. But most definitely you can come and stay. We have work-away programs where you can work and stay. And then we have interactive equine experiences. You can interact with the goats, and we got quite a few horse dogs out here too. So you can really interact with all of the animals when you come and stay with us.
Okay, now I'm super excited. We said right before we started recording that we each have to come visit each other, and I'm for sure coming to visit your ranch and would love to have you out on our ranch as well.
I would be honored to have you as my guest, and it would be great to come down and see what you're doing. And by the way, I love what I see down there so far. Your team, which is really family, is amazing, and it shows how much you can get done when you're all working together with a common goal. I love it.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I so appreciate that. Okay, so let's talk about the work that you do specifically with horses and humans. Can you just kind of share that with us?
Absolutely. So we are a Mustang rescue ranch. We predominantly focus on Mustang rescues, but we do have a couple other horses here. I have a thoroughbred and a Grulia buckskin. But you know, the Mustang has a special place in my heart. I grew up in the mountains in Colorado, and fortunately enough, I was able to see wild horses when I was growing up. And right now in America, there's a huge problem with wild horses. And I'm just doing as much as I can to make sure that I put my best foot forward in educating and getting awareness out there about what these animals are going through, and hoping that we can open our doors to as many as possible. And then anyone else who's in the position to save and rescue Mustangs can do the same. I start horses. In the horse industry, they call it tune-ups now because a lot of people don't have as much time as they used to consistently be giving to their horse. And so there may go, a couple weeks here or a month there that they unfortunately weren't able to get out and interact with their horse, and they pick up some bad habits. And so we call it a tune-up now. So I do tune-ups for horses, as well as I do my own trimming. I basically can do all things equine at our facility other than the vet stuff. So
Yeah.
when it comes to horses, we pride ourselves in being able to introduce the community and everyone properly to a horse and connect with love and understanding. And we don't call it breaking anymore. We call it starting and connecting.
Ooh, that just gave me goosebumps. How the change of language alone when you're interacting with another living being makes such a difference. I'm so using that language now. I have not heard that before, and so I'm using that language. I love that. And thank you for the work that you do with wild horses. Before we talk about the healing work that you do with horses and people, talk to me a little bit more about what's happening with wild horses and what people can do to help.
Absolutely. So in America, there are 80,000 wild horses right now. 40,000 of those horses are already in holding facilities being placed in different locations for their forever homes. So that leaves another 40,000 on the range. Some of these ranges have been told that they need to bring their numbers down to a couple hundred, and they're in the thousands right now. So that leaves us with a lot of horses that don't have anywhere to go. The thing with wild horses is they can come at any age. And so when you take an animal that was wild and bring it into domestication, it has to adjust. And in order to adjust properly, it has to be socialized and dealt with very gently. And I think that, it seems as if our entire world has gotten to this fast pace where we know that at the touch of a button, we can pretty much have anything we want. And unfortunately for the horse, that transfers over into the training and the communication with them. And this is a huge animal that carries, especially a wild horse, a lot of energy. And if you aren't able to transfer that energy, and I heard a long time ago from an amazing horsewoman that when you're training horses, it's a dance. And you have to be able to dance and exchange that energy in an ebb and flow. And with a wild horse, it's a little more difficult than a horse that's been started. So wild horses get adopted out. They have a lot of different programs. One specifically that I know of is the TIP program, which is a trainer incentive program. And it can be a little daunting and a little overwhelming for a new trainer to take on an animal that hasn't ever had any type of groundwork or any human interaction. And when that happens, it becomes frustrating. And we all know when we get frustrated, we might make mistakes or ask a little too much. And that's the other thing that, wild horses, a lot of people, when they jump on a horse, the first thing they do is kick them. Horses communicate with their eyes, their ears, their mouth, and then their feet. So when we ask, we don't want to ask with our feet first, because that's the last thing they do. So we want to communicate with our eyes. We want to communicate with our words and our body language before we ever even interact with them, whether it be a crop or it be our spurs and our set, whatever it is. There's a relationship, or as my mentor told me, there's a dance that you do before you ever even touch that horse. And so, my heart goes out to the wild horses, because not only are they the American spirit, but those horses helped us do everything that we see now. And everywhere you look where there's a car in someone's driveway, that used to be a horse. And so the way that we treat these animals now is this, it's sad that some of the situations that go on with horses, had that have been a dog or a cat, there'd be protesting and picket lines, and just spreading awareness about the plight of the wild Mustang in America is one of my major goals. But that this horse has been so resilient and has been able to maintain its herds and just the whole spirit of the horse in itself. And I can't talk enough about how much horses have done for me. And so the least that I can do for the wild horse is open up my space and educate everyone as I can to open their spaces and their hearts and their homes to bring these animals in and give them something safe.
I love it. I love it. And I know a couple things on this. One is, there's of course a lot of people who can't maybe open a space, maybe they can help contribute to someone who can, because as you and I know, maintaining horses' health, and whether it be, believe it or not, emotionally, spiritually, and physically, is costly sometimes. And so
they say it's I was gonna say, yeah, they say it's easy to get a horse. The hard part is taking care of them.
Yeah, people who come to our ranch and they're like, oh, I want to buy a horse, and but they're so expensive. I'm like, listen, if you're at all concerned about the cost of the initial purchase, forget about it, 'cause that's the cheapest part.
That's the easy part. Everything else, you're right.
Yeah.
It's very expensive, and it's not just a monetary value. It's expensive when it comes to time. It's expensive all the way around. So horses are like, I say they're like 2-year-olds. You got to watch them all the time, because they're looking for something to get into a wreck. And so if you're not monitoring them and making sure that you're giving them the attention they need, they'll go and seek it in any way they can find it.
I say that to every guest that comes in contact with our horses, is that you're dealing with a 1,200 to 1,600 pound toddler. So
yeah,
just know that they're so sweet,
right.
special, and wonderful, but they are toddlers. And so,
That's right.
But anyway, so yeah, so not everybody can maybe open their space, but you can help contribute to those who can, maybe, or in some way contribute. And I'm sure that you have some opportunities for that too, which we will get into. But the other thing, when you mentioned about wild horses and what's happening to wild horses in general, I know Mustangs, but all wild horses in general, is that they're being put also into a lot of kill shelters, and they're perfectly fine horses that people just don't want to deal with. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. So, I was just talking to a friend of mine about that, and we are doing right now our best to come up with a plan to try and purchase the land around these kill shelters, because believe it or not, it's a big business. And just saying it out loud sounds horrible. There are actually kill shelters where horses go to be slaughtered. And so, unfortunately, not just wild horses, but all horses go. I think there was a story the other day that I was watching. I couldn't finish it. It was heartbreaking, but it was telling about this thoroughbred that was clearly a $100,000+ earner. The horse itself cost maybe $500,000, but ended up in a kill shelter because its race days were over. It wasn't making anyone any money anymore, and it was going to the slaughter, and someone rescued it. And thoroughbreds, all of the horses that go onto the track, they have a tattoo under their lip. There are 3 different types of brands that horses get. The race horses get a tattoo under their lip. The ranch horses get a cowhide iron burn, and then the Mustangs that are caught get what's called a freeze burn. And the branding is specifically to tell you who the horse is, where the horse came from, how old the horse is, all that stuff, right? I say that to say that any horse can end up in a kill shelter. The thing is, they don't need to be. These horses can go and become pasture ponies or pets at places that have hope in their hearts. And obviously with, amazing, kind people like yourself that are spreading awareness that there are multiple ways to provide and help take care of horses. Even if you don't own your own horse, you can go and visit and give them love. You can send a donation. There's so many different things that you can do just to show, hey, I'm here. I want to support horses. There's something better than a kill shelter. But to go back to what kill shelters are, they're basically large ranches or barns or facilities where unwanted horses go, and then they're auctioned off to the highest bidder. Sometimes those bidders are individuals like you and I, who are going to bring those horses into our homes and share our space with them. But a lot of times those bidders are haulers that are getting ready to take these horses down to Mexico or up to Canada. Fortunately, they don't kill horses here in America, but both in Mexico and Canada, they eat horses. And so these horses go down there and up there to be slaughtered for meat. And I just think that there's so many other options for these animals, and kill shelters are just heartbreaking for me.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Several of our horses, we have 7, 6 are full size horses, one's a mini horse, and half of them, well, 4 of the 7 are rescues of some sort. They were unwanted horses that would have been sent on to a kill shelter, and we said, nope, we'll take them. And so I totally have an appreciation for loving on these incredible animals, these incredible living creatures that did build the world, really, not just the US, but the world. But of course, we were really well known here in the US, and especially, the whole Western cowboy look or whatever you want to call it. But anyway, and then they just have such intuitive, incredible healing energy about them as well, which is something special about a horse, right? And so on that
Absolutely.
note, can you tell me the kind of work that you do with, like, whether it's equine coaching or therapy or just working with humans and horses together?
Absolutely. So just to kind of give an idea of what the healing magic for horses is, they say a human's heart rate or heart energy emanates 6 feet. A horse is 80 feet. So as soon as you even get anywhere near these horses, they feel you. And in turn, that energy, the unseen force is what I'll call it, for a lack of a better word, is such a calming spiritual force that it relaxes you all the way up until the point where your heart rate starts to come down to match the horse's heart rate. So it's very good for stress reduce and anxiety reduction. It's even bigger when you get on the horse, because when you get on the horse, I know a lot of people have probably seen that movie Avatar, and the guy, he takes his ponytail and he plugs it into the horse. That is a very good description of the connection that you have with a horse when you get on its back. They're literally able to imitate your heartbeat and then bring it down. When you sit on a horse's back, if you always do this first, when you sit down, take a nice deep breath, it's probably very likely that your horse is going to do that same thing, and you're going to hear it sigh. And I tell people a lot of the time, you might as well even go, because that is relaxing in itself. And so when the horse does that and then you do that, you're completely relaxed and at one. On the spectrum of things, on one side, you have us humans as predator. And on the other side, you have horses as prey. And the funny thing about it is equine or equus is equal us. And so when you sit on that horse's back, equal us, you become one with the animal. And it's such an amazing connection on a heart and mind and body. As a holistic healer, I think any way that you can ground and connect with the elements of nature, whether it be the dirt itself or anything really, but when you put an animal in it that is almost seems like it was created to carry you and the weight of the world that you put on its back. It's just a magical thing. But I'll say also the conscious level. I heard this from another phenomenal horsewoman. It's shout out to horsewomen, by the way, because I've learned almost everything that I know from amazing horsewomen. But this horsewoman told me that humans operate on a level of consciousness, the highest level of consciousness, let's say 80%, we're conscious and we're aware. Horses are like 120. So when your horse stops and its ears are perking and turning, it sees things and it hears things that you couldn't even imagine were there. It's almost like they're traveling through that veil. Like they live simultaneously in the realm of reality and spirituality. And the path they walk is so in tune with this earth and the land itself. And they're connected in a way that we could, only imagine to be connected. That coming together is probably one of the most peaceful things next to sleeping that I know. And so the work I do, the majority of the work I do is an equine interaction. And it is as intense or as limited as you choose it individually to be. And if you wanted to just come and sit down and meditate with them, or even on their back, sit down and lay down and bond with them, we can facilitate all of that. I think the introduction to a horse is important nowadays because most people don't have the opportunity to interact with horses. If they didn't grow up on a farm or their family didn't have some type of access to a ranch, the hustle and bustle of the world now has kind of pushed horses to the outskirt. And so this huge animal that can be very intimidating upon your first introduction it's a way to get people to relax and unwind and not be so tense and afraid of interacting with this magical creature. And so I definitely say that facilitating equine experiences is my passion, but connecting people to horses is it's something that I've been doing for so long. It's become, another passion of mine. At some point in time, maybe as a kid or a young adult, I think everybody has that interaction with a horse, and it can be good or bad, but you have to either give it a second chance if it was bad, or look at the way the introduction was made if it wasn't something that you really resonated with. The ability for horses to calm and soothe people, I think, has been going on for years, and we're just now getting into the mainstream of the abilities that horses have to regulate heart rates and bring down stress and anxiety and things like that. So with the opportunity that we have here, when you come and you stay, it's an automatic that you're going to interact with the horses because they're the first thing you see when you drive in. And then after you set yourself up in your site or wherever, then coming over and interacting with them is the next thing. But facilitating the interaction I'm so grateful that I have the opportunity to do that, and that I was able to grow up around horses and able to learn how to communicate with them in a way that I can communicate to them and to the person to be able to come together in a peaceful way.
Hey guys, it's Shannon. I'm just going to interrupt for just a second to ask you for a big favor. Will you pause right now and go leave us a review if you haven't already? Or if you're not subscribed, maybe click that little plus button. We are so appreciative. Oh my goodness. Oh, all the things that you just said, some of the things that we are starting to do here at the ranch as I get more comfortable in facilitating horse experiences. I haven't had the length of time that you have had as far as exposure to horses. I've only been heavily exposed to horses since we've owned them, which has been about 3 years. And then I've, had horse interactions throughout my life, but they were of other people who owned them and I would just interact with them. And then combining that with, my day job used to be a mental health therapist. And so I'm taking kind of that plus, I have a yoga background, and then bringing the horse together now has been pretty damn magical, I got to say. And one of the things that I'm finding is, Chris, some of what you mentioned, we're not living in the present moment here in this earth experience sometimes. We're always living in the past, we're living in the future, we're living in fear, we're living somewhere else, right? When you are with a horse, especially like you mentioned, on a horse, let me tell you something, you are in the present moment, right? You are in the present
Absolutely.
moment.
You have to be.
You have to be, and you have to be connected to that other living being, right? Because there's this connection of
Yes.
trust that has to be built and established, as well as being completely present with that horse. And the horses force you to be very authentic with yourself, and if
Oh
not,
my gosh.
you will be eventually, right? Which is super important. And so some of the things that we're playing with is breath work with horses, and yoga experience with horses, and just, you know, that connection. And really, when you connect to a horse, you are totally connecting to yourself in a way that you can't do, I don't feel, in any other environment, to be quite frank with you. And that's why
Yes,
I'm so
ma'am.
drawn to the work that you do, and I'm so appreciative of it. So anyway, tell me who your mentors are. Like, who did you learn from?
Absolutely. Well, just to go back and first, let me say this: horses are in your DNA. It's either there or you have to kind of cultivate it. But for you, they're there. That genetic code was lit up as soon as you got around them, and you've been around them as much as you could. Obviously, the last 3 years you've been completely enamored with them, but it's in your DNA. And so there was another thing that you said, the yoga and the meditation. Oh my gosh, that's something that I would love to get into, and I'm definitely going to have to pick your brain on those things. What I've seen with connecting with horses in that way, it's the way that for lack of a better explanation, you have to fully surrender. And there are very few things that in this world we as humans fully surrender to. But when you're on the back of that horse and you know at any given moment something could happen, you're in surrender. You have to trust that the horse is going to take care of you, and vice versa, that horse is trusting that you're going to take care of it. There was something else you said that made me think about. I heard someone say the other day, and this is about the present, how it is, you cannot be anywhere but present when you're with a horse. I heard someone say there are 2 days that nothing happens on: yesterday and tomorrow. A horse makes you right here, right now, today. And so that's also something I love about them.
Yes, yes.
To go back to the question, my mentors, I've had some amazing mentors. Specifically, I've had the opportunity to watch and learn from some videos of amazing mentors as well. But I credit a lot of the way that I deal with horses with it's a method called the Tellington touch. Her name is Linda Tellington Jones, and she's somebody that you can look up. She has videos, and also there's a guy named Buck Brenaham. He's a phenomenal horseman as well. But I, as an avid horse lover, I've been watching and studying horses and horse people all the way down from how to sit in the saddle. I watched William Steinkraus, the gold medalist in Mexico, and just the way that he holds himself and his posture. But as far as interacting with horses, my mom and dad introduced me to horses when I was a kid. The story is they were duct taping me to the saddle when I was 3. I had a horse, her name was Peanut. By the time I was 6, she would put her head down and I could grab her neck and get up on her. But I credit a woman named Darylyn with the majority of my horse training. I came into the equine world very young, but I wasn't schooled. So the whole method I had, it's funny because that's where I get my Instagram name. Darylyn taught me that I was doing everything the savage way. And the savage way is just jumping on their back and teaching them everything from their back. There's a civilized way where you can teach a horse everything that it needs to know from the ground. And so before you ever even step on that horse's back, it knows everything already. And that civilized way took my horse game up to the next level. But I'll also say that, hands-on experience, they say time in the saddle is really what it takes. And what you did, a lot of us who loved horses, who maybe didn't have the opportunity to grow up around horses, we were what you call barn brats. We went to whatever barn had horses and hung out and shoveled manure and mucked stalls and just did anything we could to be around horses. And when I see your videos and I see how you interact with your horses and the love, that's from being a barn brat. That's from being in those stalls and mucking and moving horses around. Because remember, at those barns, the horses that are in the stall still, those are the problem horses. Nobody wants to ride those horses, or they have an issue or an injury. So they're afraid. And I think a lot of people don't realize horses have flight or fight. And the fight is actually, I love you, I'll do anything that you ask. Remember, horses will run straight into cannon fire and literally run until they die for you if you ask them to. And so when you get in the barns and you're mucking stalls and you're around these horses, you're learning to communicate with horses in a way that no one else does. And you can't be taught that. That's something that you have to go and teach yourself. And so once you put yourself in a position where you're always around horses and now you're able to communicate with them on the ground before you ever even got up on their back, that's also going to take your level or your skill level and connection to the horse up. So I have had so many amazing mentors in my life, including you, that I watch and learn from, and how they love, and even the way that they talk to their horse, that I couldn't name them all. But if I picked a couple, it would definitely be Linda and Darylyn and Buck. And I have to say this for a movie. When I was a kid, I'm telling my age too, my favorite movie was The Man from Snowy River. And to see him and his horse, the way I could, it brings joy to me to see how much that horse gave for him. And some of the scenes in that movie, they're heartbreaking, but they definitely tell the story of a horse person and their horse.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh gosh, that's so awesome. I will definitely share too as many links as I can of the folks that you've mentioned, just because I think that it's so powerful to know where we're getting some of our lessons from and some of our tips from. But I do appreciate what you said about DNA, it being in my DNA, but in general, I do think that you either gravitate towards a horse or you maybe try to force it, or you just don't. I don't know, but I think that you do, like, you just have that connection in a special magical way. And I think most people do, whether or not they're afraid of that connection is one thing or another, but most people, are at least in awe of horses.
I agree. I agree with you. I think most people do as well. And it's probably that fear that's holding them back. And it's understandable. Again, this is a huge creature and very powerful, but given the opportunity and introduced in the correct way, I think that everyone can develop a beautiful relationship with the horse.
I do too. And I'm so appreciative of those of you that are working with horses in this, I don't know if gentler is the right way, but it's more of a loving, starting approach versus the forced breaking approach, because,
I say natural horsemanship.
Yes. That's a perfect way of describing it. I live in Texas, and although there's a lot of people here that do the same type of work that you do, there's also kind of that old school cowboy, beat their ass till they do what I say,
Yeah.
kind of mentality too. And that's just not the way I operate. I've been called soft sometimes the way I work with horses, and I'm okay with that, even if it takes me longer to get the horse to trust me and to allow me to guide them, because it's not a situation where I want to force a horse ever in something that maybe they don't feel comfortable with or want to do.
I totally agree. And although maybe they haven't called me soft, I've definitely seen that look, like, just force it, make them do it. And all the way down to where, they're grabbing their halter or grabbing their reins and shaking them crazy. And I don't do any of that. I definitely operate on asking my horse first. I'm not about making my horse do anything. I think it takes a lot more patience, that's for sure, but it's more trust. And so when it comes to building the trust, it may take a little longer. Whereas if you force the horse to do it, they'll do it in 2 days. But if you build the relationship and you're patient, it may take 2 weeks. You should never be in a rush when it comes to horses, though. It's not something that you want to rush. You want to cultivate it, because not only does it bring out the best in the horse, but it brings out the best in you too. And I don't think any of us should be trying to force anybody to do anything. Asking, and as long as you're not hurting someone or manipulating them, and that's the thing about horses, they don't forget how they're treated. So, when these people are forcing horses to do things, that's where these myths come in. You should never walk behind a horse. Well, because somebody was probably mean to that horse, and as soon as it gets a chance, it's going to go ahead on and give you a kick. You should be able to walk anywhere around your horse. Horses don't do things to people because that's what they want to do. They're doing it out of fear, because someone had instilled into them, hey, if I get behind you, I may hit you or kick at you, or so they're acting off of what they've learned. I think what you're doing is amazing, and stay strong, because it doesn't matter what anyone says. You are doing this the way that you know how and you know best. And when people see your horses and you giving love and them running up and almost looking like they're smiling when they're ready to take treats from you, that lets you know you're doing it right.
I agree so much. Thank you for that. I couldn't agree more. And I want to just touch on, and then we can wrap up, because I'm sure you've got a lot to do at your ranch. But you mentioned that it might take longer, and you can, the old school, break a horse in 2 days, or you can start a horse in 2 weeks. But I really do feel like the horse that was started for 2 weeks is going to be a better companion and a more trustworthy relationship long-term, if not forever, as long as you continue to nurture it. Because like you said, horses do require time commitment, not just money, versus the 2-day break, who does remember how you did your treatment or your training or whatever you did. And they'll remember that. And it causes what I call bad manners.
Absolutely.
They'll have little bad manners going forward that you'll just always have to deal with, unless there's a better way, or call it my softer way, or whatever you want to call it. So anyway,
it would take someone like you to now get that horse that was broke in 2 days. Because it was broke, now you have to build its confidence back up, build its trust back up. And it might not take you 2 weeks now. Now it's going to take you maybe a month, because it got started the wrong way. And what you said is totally true. Depending on how you start this horse, that's going to determine the horse's life from here on out. Does it end up going to a kill shelter because it's a horse that can't be worked with? It's had too many people be trying to break it, and its spirit being unwilling to be broken. Now it's a problem horse. We don't have to have problem horses if we start them and train them the right way. And if it takes a little longer, it takes a little longer.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So tell me, and tell the audience, how we can support you.
Absolutely. So we have a website. It's called mustangsanctuary.com. And I believe there's a contact or reaching out, and I'll double check that. And if it's okay, I'll send you some more information.
Yeah.
But you can make donations on there. We have a 501c3 nonprofit. It's called Horses and Friends Animal Rescue, and you can make donations through there as well. And you can come out, and honestly, my ask would be, go and support anyone that's close to you that is doing this. Go to the grocery store, buy some carrots, go to the farm, feed the horses, show them love, and pet them, and talk to them. There are 7 games that people play with horses, and the most important game is called the friendly game. And that's just you going and being a horse's friend. So the best way to help me is to go and help some horses around you and let them know that they have a human that's a friend.
Oh, Chris, thank you so much. And everybody that's either watching or listening, wherever you're getting this, you will have links below on how to find Chris and support, whether it's him or, like he said, someone in your local area, whether it's monetary, time, or otherwise. I think the support could go a long way for not just the horse, not just Chris, but for yourself. So Chris, thank you so much for being on the show. I so appreciate you.
It was such a pleasure and an honor. Thank you so much for having me. And to all your guests, thank you. And your show is amazing. So please keep up the amazing work. And I really look forward to having you out and being able to come and see you and exchanging information and love to the horses. Because again, to help out a person who's taking care of horses, we need a lot of help. This is not that you're making time to do this and have these conversations. Horse work is sun up to sundown. And so my hat's off to you, miss. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to the Happy Hour Podcast. If you'd like to learn more, visit us online at www.happyhourpodcast.org.
And you're welcome.